song. We'll fight the powers that be. Just don't pick your destiny, cause you don't know us, you don't belong. We're not gonna take it. No, we ain't gonna take it. We're not gonna take it anymore. No way.
We are live. We are the American Adversaries, and it's a Sunday evening. That means we are departing on our 3-hour classic tour. All aboard! There you go. Thank you so much for being out there. That's right. We are on FM 105.5 and AM 660 The Answer. And, of course, on Sundays, we also simulcast on our sister station, 1520 WBZW. That's right. We are live. We are up on the YouTube channel. That's American Adversaries on YouTube. Not sure if I made the connection to Facebook, but I'll double check during the break and make sure that we are on Facebook as well. But we are on our YouTube channel, and you can subscribe to us there. That's American Adversaries on YouTube and American Adversaries on Facebook. That voice that you just heard calling out for people to get on board, of course, is Nostradamus, who's on board tonight.
I'm trying to wake up. I had a nice siesta this afternoon after a long day yesterday, and bending and stretching and need some caffeine.
All right. I am the philosopher, political mad scientist, Christopher Hart. Aubrey Kahn is on the way. Kathy Santomassino will be with us later on. Lair Adams is rumored to be in the parts. And Sonny, our gorgeous lady of wrestling, is going to join us in the 7 o'clock hour. Jeff Sinnis is on the bridge. 407-774-8255 is the number. Don't forget, you can still access us on your smart devices by downloading the free Answer Orlando app. Also on your Alexa devices. And don't forget our great website, AmericanAdversaries.com, and also theanswerorlando.com. Okay, we do have a lot to talk about tonight. We're going to go into, have you seen the documentary on Michael Jackson?
Oh, no, I haven't, but I've heard a lot
HBO?
of the backlash about it.
Oh, boy.
My goodness. There are radio stations that are thinking about not playing his songs anymore.
In fact, a lot of them are. We'll talk about that with Sonny a little bit later on in the show. I have not seen it. Kathy has seen, I think, most of it. I guess it's couple parts.
Yeah, and the thing is, there's nothing new in what's being put out there, but it's all collected in one place. So it's things that we've heard and that we kind of know went on that we've just decided to put out of our minds as a collective society.
Well, evidently there's a little bit more, shall we say, graphic detail.
Yeah.
That really, seems to drive the point home. The man's not around to defend himself. But anyway, we'll take that up a little bit later on in the show. And, of course, R. Kelly, his latest troubles started out with a documentary as well.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll talk about all of that, as I said, a little bit later on in the show. You ever see the movie The Candidate with Robert Redford?
I love that movie, and I love the last line of it.
Which is?
He says, as the elevator doors are closing, you don't hear him, but you see him mouth the words, "What do I do now?"
That's the night after he had won election, right? Well, we're going to tell you about another, and he was kind of a made candidate, if you remember.
Absolutely.
The movie.
He was a manufactured for TV candidate.
All right. Well, we got our own manufactured for, so we say, popular consumption candidate going on right now, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to reveal who that candidate is and who put her there. And Nostradamus will go into that in some detail a little bit later on in the show. And by the way, he has posted an article about this already on our Facebook page.
It's the video.
I mean, the video.
The video we've been looking at and researching all day.
Yeah, it's a YouTube video. Okay, so we got all that to talk about. We also have Andrew McCabe's been shooting off his mouth again, so we'll talk about that just a little bit. And what was the other thing I wanted to hit on? Oh, did you hear what Ilhan Omar said about Barack Obama?
Yeah, not very complimentary words. And we're kind of stuck. What do you say when one liberal goes after another liberal like that?
Well, I mean, in one sense, she was complimentary. She called him pretty, or said he has a pretty smile.
Joe Biden said he was a clean, well-articulated black man. Does that mean that he was complimenting him?
So we'll touch on that in a little while, too. Right now, the Arnold Palmer Classic is wrapping up out at Bay Hill. And as typical can be out there, you got a shootout going on. Unfortunately, Tiger Woods is not there. he's resting up, I guess, for the Players Championship next week.
He said he's had not back problems, but neck problems.
Yeah, neck problem.
Yeah.
I thought something like that might be up. I was watching a tournament, I guess, a week or two ago he was playing in, and the commentators, well, I miss Johnny Miller.
Mm-hmm.
I miss him so much because he just added so much to the sport that these guys they're just very mere shadows of him. They were talking about how conservative he was playing. He wasn't using his driver and stuff like this. And to me, it was fairly obvious there's something wrong with his physical stature, because they were also saying, and by the way, this technique is not working for him. So I'm thinking, well, I think Johnny Miller would have gone down the road of, I wonder if he's having neck problem or back problems or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, he is, in terms of golf, in his twilight years, in terms of playing on the regular circuit. Certainly he's got a future if he wants it on the senior circuit, but it's a different level of game on the regular circuit, and his body just can't hang in there.
Speaking of golf and personalities we're going to miss, if you're a golf fan, you probably know the name Dan Jenkins.
Yes, the writer.
Long time, Sporting News, Sports Illustrated, golf commentator, and just passed away a couple years ago at 90 years old.
90 years ago, and used to smoke like a chimney.
I remember hearing his part of his obituary. They said the three things he liked to do when he wasn't working was smoking, drinking, and not giving a blank.
The sports world will definitely miss him, and it just isn't the writers just aren't what they used to be, because it's a whole different environment. I mean, there is no newspaper anymore, no newsroom, no sports room at the newspaper. They all write on their own in their own homes, and it's just
so there's really no bar to go to after work to talk into the wee hours about sports like every city used to have.
Exactly. So anyway, we'll kind of keep an eye on that and let you know who the winner is, and presume that we'll have some of our listeners listening on the way home from Bay Hill out there. I watched the NBC News last night, and I very seldom do. I just happened to be home, and I happened to be eating dinner at the time, and I had been watching the Bay Hill Classic, and the local news came on afterwards. So I decided to keep it on and see what they were going to do to bash Trump last night. And guess what? They did not bash Trump last night.
Whoa, mark the date down. What, yesterday?
Yeah.
March 8th?
Of course.
March 9th.
Yeah, right. There was 2019. There was I guess a reason why they didn't bash Trump, and it's because they didn't even talk about him hardly at all.
Wow. No news is better than bad news.
I guess so. Not as far as he's concerned. He likes to be in the news no matter what. Maybe some of them have finally figured that out over there. But they did not give him any negative coverage. They sort of mentioned him in passing, that he was in Mar-a-Lago doing these fundraisers, by the way, which Randy Ross has been down there.
Did you see Randy on his Facebook page? He was letting his whole Facebook community kind of help him out. He laid out a bunch of ties and said, "Which one should I wear?" Come on, Randy, dress yourself.
All right. So he will regale us with his adventures when he joins us Tuesday night. But the president has been in Mar-a-Lago all weekend with his family, Melania and his son, Barron, and he's been doing these fundraisers, several of them over the last couple of days, and also, planning out 2020 campaign strategy. So they just basically mentioned that. They were more intent on talking about the Democrats, the multitudes of Democrats who are now running against President Trump. Well, I should say running against each other for the opportunity to run against President Trump.
What are they up to now? 9?
I think it's 9 official. We're still waiting on Joe Biden.
Right. And
the word is that Bloomberg got out because he knows Biden is getting in. I'm not so sure of that. I think Bloomberg got out because he figured that in this environment in the Democrat Party, there's no way he can win the nomination as a Democrat. The Republicans aren't going to have anything to do with him.
And he
can't win as an independent.
He's a capitalist. He doesn't want to spend $1 billion and have no results out of it.
I think I think you're right. And I think what he's going to do is he'll do what he's done the last couple of election cycles, and that is spend $200 or $300 million promoting candidates around the country, like Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, Tlaib, whatever her name is.
Rashida
Tlaib, and people like Aramis Ayala, and in local elections. And so I think he'll just, sort of bide his time and maybe think that, next cycle might be a better situation for him.
He's biding his time?
Biden his time. That's right. And meanwhile, the Democrats are trying to out-left one another. And this is why Biden thinks he can do it this time. He thinks that his own party is so far out to lunch, I'll call it, that even Joe Biden, who is the president, has noted in multitudes of tweets, has never managed to get past like the first round in the Democrat presidential primary in his life, even though he's tried 2 or 3 times already, right? I think he actually even ran against Hillary and Obama, wasn't it? And got out in the first round of that.
But what happened in 2008? In late March, John McCain was still between 1% and 2%.
Yeah.
And then one by one, another one bites the dust. And when all the dust was settled, he was the nominee.
Yeah. Well, it hasn't been that way for Joe Biden. So I think he thinks that this is his opportunity, not so much that he's thinking toward the general election, but the primary, at least initially. Should he run? Could he win the primary? I'm sure that one of the reasons he was reluctant to get in is I don't think he wants to be embarrassed again by getting in as a former vice president and losing a presidential primary.
Yep.
Especially to the likes of Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, which is what it would have been the last go round. And so
there'd be a good chance it would be another Reagan Mondale.
Right. So I think he sees himself as the alternative to all the above or all the others, and that his only true competition is Bernie Sanders. And wouldn't it be something if those two would pair up?
Wow.
You want to talk about, remember that movie Grumpy Old Men?
Yeah, the Ballad of Bernie and Joe.
Oh, talk about 2 grumpy old men. I tell you what, that would be something.
Raquel Welch's character would be played by AOC.
That's right. It would be a hoot, that's for sure. Could you imagine the debates? But nonetheless, the president is very successful, and the economy is showing that. And that is what the Democrats are going to have to run against. In the meantime, I want to talk when we come back about an article that appeared, actually it came out last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago, on the 25th of February in Time magazine. It didn't get much notice, but I noticed it today. And once again, it's the way the fake news likes to treat this president, which is to say rudely, to say the least. All right, you are listening to the American Adversaries. We are indeed on our Sunday evening 3-hour classic tour live in the Relax and Comfort Studios. We'll take a break and come right back on the other side with more to go.
Hey, Central Florida, Dave Ramsey here. When you need advice on your taxes and want to work with someone who has the heart of a teacher, you need to see Larry Herring, CPA. He's one of our tax-endorsed local providers, and he's ready to talk with you about all your income tax needs. Larry Herring will help you manage your taxes just like any other expense. Take it from me, Larry is your guy. 407-647-7777 or at herringcpa.com.
Nearly everyone loves Italian food, but those people who love true, authentic Italian go to Cafe Positano. It's because owner and chef Pasquale Barba offers home-cooked food from his hometown, Positano, Italy. He is Italian. Local fresh items are combined with rare ingredients imported only from Italy, along with generations-old family recipes. Whether it's pizza or those delicious daily specials, taste for yourself at Cafe Positano, 4 miles west of I-4 on 436. 407-774-8080. The most authentic Italian food in Central Florida.
All right, welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. That's right. We're going down to the swamp and help clean that thing out. Help the president. Talk about movies. You ever see the movie, the original movie, The Longest Yard?
The Burt Reynolds original.
Original one?
Yeah.
Right. Remember where they sent him first when he first got to jail? They sent him out to do swamp reclamation.
Yep.
Remember that?
Perfect for a Florida State Seminole. We're trying to clean up the Gators home.
Indeed, and that was filmed in the swamps up there between Florida and Georgia, and actually in Reevesville State Penitentiary, the real prison there in Georgia.
Didn't they use a couple of inmates as extras too?
Yeah, when you see the long shots on the yard and you see a lot of the inmates out there, those are
really inmates.
Yeah, a lot of them are. Not all of them, but a lot of them, yeah. Okay, I don't know if they got any royalties from the movie.
Well, they got a couple of candy bars from the commissary. I don't know.
But if you see at the end of the movie, they mention the Georgia State Department of Corrections for the use of Reevesville State Penitentiary. All right. Before we get to the Time article, while we're at it, we're talking about the Democrat candidates and how they're trying to out-left one another. This former governor of Colorado, what's his first name? John Hickenlooper. John Hickenlooper was on MSNBC, The Morning Joke, the other morning. And Joe Scarborough was interviewing him because he has decided he was one of the few deciding not to run for president.
At this time.
And saying that he thinks he can do more from without. But he was being asked about the leftward pull of the Democrat Party, and was that the reason why he got out? And no, I got no problem with that or anything like that. And so Scarborough was actually pressing him a little bit, surprise, and wanted to know if he was okay with socialism and identifying with these socialists, right? And he wouldn't say yes, but he also wouldn't say that he's a capitalist. He was, I'm a businessman. I've been a businessman. That's how I made my way in this world. So I know about capitalism, but he wouldn't identify with it.
He made his living on capitalism.
Right, but he wouldn't identify with it, right?
He's a wuss.
In other words, I was a businessman. In other words, I took advantage of the capitalist system. It got me to be a governor of one of the 50 states, and yet I won't credit it or identify with it.
I'm not posing in pictures with capitalism. It's not going to happen.
Right. So I'm calling it Hickenlooper's dilemma, right? He doesn't know what he is. He doesn't know that he's a capitalist anymore, and he doesn't really want to identify with the socialists yet.
Yeah, right.
And yet that's where the party is moving. That's where, as they like to say, the energy is. And the problem for the Democrats is that's a dilemma for them too. And don't you know that as President Trump has already sort of played his hand a little bit when he did that CPAC 2-hour CPAC speech, was it last week? When he talked about, he mentioned again, we will never be a socialist country. That is going to end. Mike Pence the day before, and that whole CPAC conference was about the socialist movement of the Democrat Party and how that's going to be a big issue. They're going to make sure it is in the upcoming election. And the Democrats are giving them the perfect setup for it. So their dilemma is going to be, how in the world are you going to be able to sell that when you can't even sell it to Hickenlooper?
Right.
You see, and now you're going to sell it to middle America. When I mean middle America, I mean that middle third who isn't as strongly identified with either party or, shall we say, conservatives or liberals. That middle third, that middle America. How are you going to be able to persuade them if you can't persuade yourselves?
Well, Trump and Pence said the same thing, but they said it in different ways. And I personally like the way that Pence defined it better, because Trump basically said, we will never be a socialist country. And to me, some people could take that as, it's just not going to happen. It's just too extreme. It'll never happen. Where Pence said, logically, this will never be a socialist country, because if we adopt the tenets of socialism, we cease becoming America.
What he does is he makes the philosophical argument a little bit, shall we say, more fleshed out.
He puts it in a little more detail, and I think makes it a little more understandable to people who might think that Trump is taking the extreme left not seriously enough.
Right. But this is where I think the liberals and the media and people on the left never really got Trump. And that is, he speaks in philosophical terms, but they're big, broad, bold statements.
He's got a big paintbrush, not a little tiny one.
Right.
Yeah.
And it doesn't give you a lot of the, if you read philosophy, you got to dig for the big, bold statements because there's so much crap all around him. Okay. Well, he doesn't deal in the crap. He deals in the big, bold statements. And so if you are looking to understand what he means in a philosophical sense, it's easy to figure him out. But if you're not looking to do that, he's either confusing to you or he looks like a buffoon. And so that's where they don't get him. But see, those big, bold philosophical things resonate with the public. It's like a bell that rings, and it's the sound that they like to hear. And they don't have to see who's ringing it or how it works. They just like to hear the sound.
And he knows that, and he also knows that it has the exact opposite effect on the left. And a lot of times he does it to tweak them.
Exactly right. And as far as Pence goes, that'll be part of the job of the rest of us. And that is to flesh out the big, bold philosophical stances and statements that the president makes. And so it's going to be a heck of an election from that aspect. And the Democrats, as I said, they're walking right into this buzzsaw, and they think that they're going to be able to come out of it and not be, shall we say, called out on it. And the media is going to be in a perplexing situation because this is going to be a hard sell.
And if they think that their base is that far left, then they're in a precarious situation, because that means that moderate Democrats and most independents are not going to follow them to the left edge of that cliff.
Not likely at all. And one of the talking heads this morning, I forget his name, he was a Republican analyst, and I believe he was on the NBC show. But anyway, he was talking about how the more they move towards socialism, the more popular the president has been getting.
In comparison, sure.
Yeah, and you noticed that. You brought out some poll numbers the other day in his economic numbers.
Yep.
On the economy and unemployment.
58%.
Right. This is not the path to socialism that he is paving. And those percentages, if the Democrats keep moving left, he's going to be seen as the alternative to them, not so much judged by his own wherewithal, shall we say.
The path to socialism is sold a lot more easily in a bad economy, in maybe, who knows, a recession, a depression.
Right.
That's what happened with Germany in the 30s.
Yep.
It was much, much easier to sell that to them.
Yeah.
But socialism is also something that the young people who have not had to work for a living, especially college students, are susceptible to.
Right. They've never had to live under it, so
Right.
they have no comparison.
And also elderly people who do not have the financial means to live in their old age, they also tend to gravitate towards the welfare state and to socialism.
Well, what they are most concerned about is that their Social Security checks keep coming.
And
So
have you
survival,
heard this line of thought this week? Well, what do you call Social Security? Social Security is socialism.
No.
No, it's not. It's a very poorly managed bank account for
Well,
retirees.
In a way, though, it was a baby step in that direction. And this came about during the FDR administration, during the Depression, and it was on the heels of a huge progressive movement in our politics that brought about Woodrow Wilson and a number of amendments to the Constitution, including prohibition, and I must say also the right for women to vote. That was the one good thing that came out of it. And it was originally meant to be just a social safety net. It wasn't meant to be a retirement plan, and it was also originally meant to pay for itself, and it never has. It quickly turned into a Ponzi scheme, where the people who pay into it now are the ones who, the people who are receiving benefits now aren't receiving their own money back. They're receiving money back that we're paying in, and that people who are currently working are paying in.
But it worked for Ida Mae Fuller. You know the story of Ida Mae Fuller?
She was, I believe, the first recipient.
Right. She filed her retirement on November 1939. She only put into Social Security for about 3 years, and she pulled out check number 00-000-001 in the amount of $22. During her lifetime, she collected over $22,000 in benefits. That doesn't sound like much. She paid in $24.
Well, see, that's where the Ponzi scheme begins.
Sure.
They promised out more than they could take in,
and they continue to do so.
and it has continued from day one. And of course, now we're talking billions, trillions of dollars. People talk real quick, Aubrey. People talk about we owe now $22 trillion on the public debt. That's what we owe from the budget deficit. If you look at what we have in outstanding obligations,
It's $100 trillion.
It's about 150. You were going to say,
yeah. When they started Social Security, the premise was that the population is going to keep growing. And so
true.
There would always be more money coming in than what's going out. However, that situation's changed.
Yeah. Well,
and our population's actually shrinking.
Right. Our population is shrinking, and that's one reason why the Republicans want to keep the borders open.
Right.
The Democrats have their own reason. The Republicans are aware of the fact that our population is shrinking and we need to add bodies, warm bodies. The problem is when you bring in people who are of working age who are illiterate, it just increases the burden. It doesn't increase the payoff.
You've got to bring in the right people.
That's the bottom line. Exactly. And that's where our immigration system is failing
us. If you
us.
can't figure that out, you got to stop bringing people in entirely.
Indeed. And now they're coming across the northern border. All right, you hear about that? You can get a ticket in Mexico, fly to Ontario, and come across that way. The Canadians will make it easy for you. All right, you're listening to the American Adversaries, where we try to make it easy for you, too, to be informed. That's right. We're here. We're live until 8 o'clock, and Mark Walters takes us all live until 11 o'clock. So listen again to the American Adversaries, and we'll be right back.
Close to folks you have you ever felt the pain so powerful, so heavy you could laugh?
With SRN News, I'm John Scott. The United Nations Migration Agency says the UN and its agencies on Monday will fly flags at half-staff after early indications show 19 employees of UN-affiliated organizations died in the Ethiopian Airlines crash today. All 157 people on board died minutes after that takeoff from Addis Ababa. An administration official says President Trump will seek $8.6 billion in his new budget to build the U.S.-Mexico border wall. That request could set up another showdown with Congress. Julia Ruth Stevens, last surviving daughter of Hall of Fame baseball slugger Babe Ruth. The champion of his legacy has died. She was 102. Stevens' family says she died Saturday at an assisted living facility in Henderson, Nevada, after a short illness. This is SRN News.
Hello, baby. Be here at 8. Don't be late. Oh, baby, you know what I like.
Oh, Mike, what are you doing?
I am getting ready for